The lights on Nexus Prime Station blinked in their steady rhythm, casting long shadows down the metal corridors. Daeho Kim pressed his small face against the thick glass window, watching the stars move slowly past. At 8 years old, everything about the massive space station amazed him. Ships came and went like busy insects carrying creatures he had only seen in picture books. "Stay close to me," his mother Eunmi said softly, checking her translation device one more time. She worked as a translator between humans and aliens, helping them understand each other during important meetings. Today's meeting was very important. 3 alien races that hated each other were trying to make a trade agreement. Daeho nodded and took her hand. The hallways of Nexus Prime were always busy, but today felt different. Security guards stood at every corner. Their leader, Tae-wook, had warned everyone to be extra careful. When enemy aliens met in one place, trouble could start quickly. They walked toward Conference Room 7, located in the outer ring of the station. Daeho could hear strange sounds coming from inside, clicking noises, low humming, and what sounded like water bubbling. These were the sounds of 3 very different alien species trying to talk to each other. "Remember what I taught you about the aliens?" Eunmi asked as they stopped outside the door. Daeho counted on his fingers. "The bug people are called Vextar's species. They are very strong and like to fight. The crystal people think with numbers and facts. The water people protect their homes and don't trust strangers." "Very good," his mother smiled. "And what do we never do?" "We never point or stare. We speak quietly. We show respect," Daeho recited. The conference room doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the 3 alien groups sat as far apart as possible. The Vextar delegate looked like a giant ant standing on 2 legs. His black shell gleamed under the lights, and his 4 arms moved constantly. His name was hard to say, so everyone just called him Commander. The Shard Coalition representative looked like a walking crystal formation. Light passed through his body in strange patterns, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like music. The humans called him Bright One, because looking directly at him hurt their eyes. The Tide World's delegate was the most unusual. His skin was wet and changed colors like a fish. Gills on his neck opened and closed as he breathed. Small tentacles around his mouth moved when he spoke. Everyone called him Wave Speaker. Daeho sat in a corner with a small tablet, playing quiet games while the adults talked. The conversation did not go well. The 3 aliens argued about trade routes, territory, and old battles. His mother worked hard to translate their words correctly, but the aliens seemed to get angrier with each sentence. "Your people attacked our mining ships." The crystal being's voice rang like bells. "Only after you invaded our breeding grounds." The insect commander clicked loudly. The fish-like alien skin turned dark red. "Both of you crossed into our sacred waters without permission." Eunmi tried to calm them down. "Perhaps we can discuss compensation for damages." "There will be no peace between our species." The commander's shell rattled with anger. Daeho looked up from his game. The adults were standing now, their voices getting louder. He had seen his mother handle difficult meetings before, but this felt different. The air in the room seemed to buzz with tension. Suddenly the lights flickered, once, twice. Then the room went completely dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. An alarm began to wail throughout the station. The sound was loud and scary, like a giant monster crying. "Hull breach in Section 7, a voice announced over the speakers. "All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill." The floor beneath them shook violently. Daeho's tablet flew from his hands and crashed against the wall. The 3 alien delegates forgot their argument and looked around in confusion. "Everyone out! Now!" Tae-wook's voice crackled through the communication system. The conference room door tried to open but stuck halfway. Sparks flew from the control panel next to it. The shaking got worse and a loud groaning sound came from the walls around them. "The section is collapsing." Eunmi grabbed Daeho's hand. "We need to find another way out." The Vextar commander pushed against the stuck door with his 4 powerful arms. The crystal being focused his energy, trying to cut through the metal with beams of light. The amphibious delegate used his tentacles to search for other exits. Another violent shake threw everyone to the floor. The lights went out completely this time. In the darkness, Daeho heard his mother calling his name, but her voice seemed far away. When the emergency lights came back on, everything had changed. A large piece of the ceiling had fallen between Daeho and the others. He was trapped on the far side of the room, near the outer wall where the windows showed space. "Daeho!" his mother screamed. She tried to climb over the debris, but more pieces kept falling. "I'm okay, Mom," he called back, but his voice was small and scared. The Vextar commander and the other aliens worked together to move the heavy metal pieces, but every time they cleared one section, more debris fell to block their path. "The hull is cracking," the crystal being announced, his voice now worried instead of musical. "I can see fracture patterns spreading through the outer wall." Daeho looked at the big window behind him. Thin lines were appearing in the thick glass like spider webs growing across the surface. He could hear a soft hissing sound that made his ears hurt. "The air is leaking out," he told the adults, though he wasn't sure if they could hear him over the alarms. "We need to get him out of there now." Yunmi's voice was full of panic. "The emergency barriers are activating." Taewook's voice came through the speakers again. "Everyone clear the area immediately." Heavy metal doors began sliding down from the ceiling at both ends of the corridor outside. These were the station's emergency barriers designed to stop air leaks by sealing off damaged sections. But Daeho realized with growing fear that once those doors closed, no one could get in or out. "Mom," he called out as the barriers got lower and lower. "I'll come back for you," she promised. "Stay away from the windows. Find somewhere safe to hide." The last thing Daeho saw before the emergency barriers sealed shut was his mother's face, full of tears and determination. The 3 alien delegates were beside her, all of them working together to try to reach him. Now he was alone in the damaged section. The hissing sound got louder, and the cracks in the window grew bigger. The air tasted strange, like metal and electricity. His ears popped and he knew the air pressure was dropping. Outside the sealed barriers, he could hear voices arguing about rescue plans. His mother was crying and demanding that someone do something. The 3 aliens that had been enemies just minutes ago were now working together, trying to find a way to save him. Daeho sat down on the floor, hugging his knees to his chest. The stars outside the cracking window looked very pretty, but he knew that if the glass broke completely, he would be sucked out into space where there was no air to breathe. He closed his eyes and tried to remember what his mother had taught him about being brave. "When you're scared," she always said, "think about the people who love you. They will find a way to help." The sounds from outside the barriers were getting louder and more urgent. More voices had joined the rescue effort. Even though he was trapped and afraid, Daeho felt a small spark of hope. His mother would find a way to save him. She always did. But time was running out, and the cracks in the window were spreading faster. The emergency lights cast red shadows across the corridor outside Section 7. Yunmi pressed her hands against the sealed metal barrier, tears streaming down her face. Behind that wall, her 8-year-old son was trapped with failing air and cracking windows. "How long does he have?" she asked Station Chief Taewook, her voice shaking. Taewook checked his handheld scanner. The numbers were not good. "The air pressure is dropping fast. Maybe 2 hours before it becomes dangerous. Less if the window breaks." Human rescue teams were already working on the other side of the damaged section, but twisted metal and electrical fires blocked their path. Every few minutes more debris fell, making their job harder. "We need cutting equipment," one rescue worker reported. "The standard tools aren't strong enough for this kind of damage." "What about the emergency tunnels?" Yunmi asked desperately. "Sealed automatically when the breach happened," Taewook replied. "The station's safety system is designed to contain damage, not allow rescue access." More people gathered in the corridor. Word about the trapped human child was spreading throughout Nexus Prime. Ship crews, traders, and station workers all wanted to help. But wanting to help and being able to help were 2 different things. Then something unexpected happened. The Vextar commander stepped forward from the crowd. His black shell reflected the red emergency lights as he approached Taewook. "My soldiers can reach the human child," he said in his clicking voice. Everyone stared at him. The three alien delegates had been arguing and fighting just an hour ago. Now one of them was offering to help. Your people? Taewook asked, surprised. Vextar warriors are built for tight spaces and toxic air, the commander explained. Our shells protect us from dangers that would kill other species. We can go through passages too small for humans. Yunmi looked at the insect-like alien with hope in her eyes. You would do that? Help save my son? The commander's forearms moved in what humans had learned was a sign of respect. A child in danger calls to the protector instinct in all warriors. Your species may be soft, but you fight hard for your young. This we understand. Before anyone could respond, the crystal being called Bright One approached them. Light danced through his transparent body as he spoke. My calculations show 17 possible paths through the damaged section, he announced. But you will need precise navigation to avoid further collapses. My drones can map the safest routes in real time. Taewook's mouth fell open. You're offering to help too? Logic demands the preservation of innocent life, Bright One replied. The child has committed no acts of aggression. His survival serves no strategic purpose for any faction. Therefore, his rescue transcends political considerations. The amphibious delegate called Wave Speaker moved closer, his wet skin changing from blue to purple. His gills fluttered as he breathed the station's dry air. The breach is leaking atmosphere, he said in his gurgling voice. My people can seal cracks that your technology cannot fix. Our natural secretions harden in vacuum conditions. Yunmi looked at the three alien representatives in amazement. Just hours ago, they had been screaming at each other, threatening war. Now they were all volunteering to risk their lives for her son. But you hate each other, she said quietly. Your species have been fighting for years. The Vextar commander's antenna twitched. Hatred is for enemies who threaten our young. Your child threatens no one. Emotional conflicts become irrelevant. When faced with mathematical certainties, Bright One added, the child will die without intervention. We possess the capabilities to intervene. Wave Speaker's tentacles writhed slowly. The young deserve protection. This truth exists above the foolish boundaries we draw between species. Taewook realized this might be their only chance. The human rescue teams were making slow progress, and time was running out. But asking these three species to work together was like asking fire and water to cooperate. You'll have to coordinate your efforts, he warned them. That means communicating, sharing information, trusting each other. The three aliens looked at each other. The tension between them was still there, thick as smoke. Generations of war and mistrust didn't disappear in a moment. We will work together, the commander said finally, for the child. Agreed. Bright One's voice chimed like crystal bells. Temporary cooperation protocols activated. Wave Speaker's skin shifted to a calm green color. The tide brings all creatures together sometimes. Today is such a day. As the three species began planning their rescue operation, something beautiful happened. Other aliens throughout the station started offering help too. A group of traders brought emergency supplies. Engineers from different worlds shared their technical knowledge. Even species that usually avoided contact with others came forward with offers of assistance. I've never seen anything like this, Taewook whispered to Eunmi. Beings that normally won't even breathe the same air are working together. Inside the damaged section, Daeho heard voices through the sealed barrier. He pressed his ear against the metal and heard his mother talking to the aliens. Mom, he called out. I can hear you. Daeho, Yunmi's voice came back, muffled but clear. Baby, are you okay? The window has more cracks now, he reported honestly. And the air tastes funny. But I found a safe spot behind some boxes. Listen to me carefully, she said. Some very brave friends are coming to help you. They might look scary, but they're good people. You need to do exactly what they tell you, okay? The bug people? And the crystal person? And the fish man? Yes. Sweetheart, they're all working together to bring you home. On the other side of the barrier, the three alien delegates were already putting their plan into action. Vextar soldiers prepared their cutting tools while Bright One's crystal drones mapped the damaged section. Wave Speaker mixed his natural chemicals to create temporary seals for air leaks. The child shows no panic in his voice, the commander observed. Human young are stronger than their size suggests. His cooperation will improve our success probability by 37%, Bright One calculated. He trusts his mother's words completely, Wave Speaker noted. This shows wisdom beyond his years. Other species continued to arrive with offers of help. The corridor became crowded with beings from across the galaxy, all united by the simple desire to save one small human child. A maintenance worker from the reptilian Gixtha offered his knowledge of the station's hidden passages. Flying creatures called the Vellani promised to carry messages quickly between rescue teams. Even the mysterious energy beings known as the Pax-2 offered to provide extra power to life support systems. Why are they all helping? Yunmi asked, Taewook, amazed by the sight. I think it's because of how you're handling this, he replied. You're not screaming or blaming anyone. You're just focused on saving your son. It's inspiring. The Vextar commander overheard this conversation. He turned to look at Eunmi with his compound eyes. Human female, he said formally. Your courage honors your species. We will not fail your child. As the rescue teams prepared to enter the damaged section, Daeho sat quietly in his hiding spot, listening to the sounds of many different voices working together. He didn't understand all the alien languages, but he could hear the determination in their tones. For the first time since being trapped, he smiled. His mother had been right. When people loved you, they would find a way to help, even if those people weren't people at all. The rescue operation began with careful planning. In the corridor outside Section 7, 3 species that had been enemies for generations now worked side by side. Maps and diagrams covered every available surface as they studied the damaged area. Bright One's crystal drones had already entered the section through tiny cracks in the walls. They sent back detailed pictures of the destruction inside. The path to Daeho would not be easy. 17 separate obstacles blocked the main route. Bright One announced, his body glowing brighter as he processed information. Fallen support, beams, twisted metal, and 3 electrical fires. The Vextar commander studied the images with his compound eyes. My soldiers can cut through the metal barriers, but we will need protection from the electrical dangers. My energy shields can handle that, Bright One replied. But your people and mine have never worked this closely before. It was true. The crystal beings had used those same energy shields as weapons against the Vextar in many battles. Now they needed to trust each other completely. Wave Speaker's skin changed to a worried yellow color. The toxic gases are spreading faster than expected. My people can survive in that environment, but barely. We will need to work quickly. Taewook watched the 3 species planning together. It seemed impossible that beings who had been shooting at each other last month were now sharing tactical information. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. If something goes wrong down there, then we fail together, the commander clicked firmly. Better than failing alone. The first team entered the damaged section through a maintenance hatch. 2 Vextar soldiers led the way, their black shells gleaming in the emergency lighting. Behind them, 3 crystal drones floated silently, mapping every step. Daeho, Eunmi called through the communication system. The rescue team is coming. You might hear some loud noises, but don't be scared. I won't be scared, Mom, came the brave reply. Are the bug people really helping me? The Vextar commander heard this through his radio. For a moment, his fierce expression softened. Tell the human child that Commander Kixta comes to bring him home. It was the first time any of the aliens had shared their real names with the humans. Inside the damaged section, the rescue team found their first major obstacle. A massive support beam had fallen across the corridor, completely blocking their path. The beam was too heavy for even Vextar strength to move. We need to cut through it, the lead soldier reported. But the metal is very thick. Negative, Bright One's voice crackled through the radio. Cutting will destabilize the entire section. My calculations show a 68% chance of total collapse. The team was stuck. Minutes ticked by as they searched for another solution. In his hiding spot, Daeho could hear the rescue workers talking, but they sounded frustrated. Then Wave Speaker made a suggestion that surprised everyone. "My people can soften the metal," he said. "Our acid secretions can weaken the beam enough for your soldiers to bend it instead of cutting it." The Vextar soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Wave Speaker's people had used those same acid attacks against Vextar forces in the war. Trusting those deadly secretions near their shells went against every survival instinct. "Will it work?" Commander Kixta asked. "The chemical interaction should reduce structural integrity by 43%. Bright One calculated. Sufficient for your strength capabilities." "Do it," the commander decided. Wave Speaker's team entered the section wearing special breathing equipment. Their wet skin glistened as they carefully applied their natural acids to specific points on the fallen beam. The metal began to smoke and weaken. "Now," Wave Speaker signaled. The Vextar soldiers grabbed the beam with all 4 arms each and pulled. Slowly, with grinding metal sounds, the massive barrier bent enough to create a passage. "First obstacle cleared," the team reported. "Moving. Forward." But the real test came at the second barrier. Electrical fires blocked the corridor, sending dangerous sparks in all directions. The Vextar soldiers' shells could protect them from many things, but electricity could still hurt them badly. "I need to get my drones closer to create a safe path," Bright One said. "But they're not designed for this much electrical interference." "Can you make them stronger?" Commander Kixta asked. "Not with current power levels. I would need to channel more energy through them, but that would drain my personal reserves." It was a difficult choice. If Bright One used too much energy, he might collapse. Crystal beings could die from energy exhaustion, just like other species could die from lack of air. "Do it anyway," he decided. "The child's life is worth the risk." Wave Speaker's skin shifted to a surprised purple. "You would endanger yourself for a human child?" "Logic indicates that preserving innocent life takes priority over personal safety," Bright One replied. But those listening could hear something else in his crystalline voice, something that sounded like genuine care. The energy shields around Bright One's drones blazed brighter than ever before. They pushed through the electrical fires, creating a safe corridor for the rescue team to follow. "He's weakening himself for us," one Vextar soldier observed with respect. The team pressed forward, but each obstacle revealed new challenges that required all 3 species to work together. When toxic gases became too thick, Wave Speaker's people filtered the air with their gills. When metal debris needed precise cutting, the Vextar provided the strength while Bright One's calculations ensured accuracy. Most importantly, they began to understand each other in ways they never had before. "Your people fight with honor," Commander Kixta told Wave Speaker during a brief rest. "I had not realized this before." "Your warriors show true courage," Wave Speaker replied. "Not the mindless aggression we were told about. Both species demonstrate capabilities that exceed my previous data," Bright One admitted. "Perhaps my calculations about your peoples were incomplete." Meanwhile, Yunmi maintained constant communication with her son, keeping his spirits up and providing updates on the rescue progress. "They're getting closer, sweetheart," she told him. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," Daeho admitted. "And the air tastes really bad now, but I can hear them working. They're making lots of noise." Through the radio, the rescue team could hear the child's voice getting weaker. Time was running out faster than they had hoped. "The window cracks are spreading," Daeho reported quietly. "I can see space through them now." "Stay away from the windows," Yunmi urged him. "Find something solid to hide behind." "I already did, Mom. I'm being careful." The rescue team pushed harder, driven by the sound of the brave child's weakening voice. These 3 species that had spent years fighting each other now moved like a single unit, each supporting the others without hesitation. "Final barrier ahead," the lead Vextar soldier reported. "I can see the child's location, but when they reached the last obstacle, they found their biggest challenge yet. A massive section of the outer hull had collapsed, creating a maze of twisted metal between them and Daeho. The path was too narrow for Vextar soldiers, too dangerous for crystal drones, and too dry for Wave Speaker's people. "We need a new plan," Commander Kixta said grimly. The answer came from an unexpected source, Daeho himself. "I can see you," his small voice called out. "There's a small hole I can crawl through, but something heavy is blocking it on your side." The Mao rescue team looked at the obstacle with new understanding. Sometimes the solution required the smallest person to be the bravest of all. The twisted metal barrier looked impossible to move. Sharp edges jutted out in all directions, and the whole structure groaned under its own weight. Behind it, they could hear Daeho's breathing getting more difficult as the toxic air grew thicker. "The hole is just big enough for the child," Commander Kixta observed. "But this debris must be lifted to widen the passage." Bright One's drones scanned the barrier carefully. "Warning. Any attempt to move this structure will cause immediate collapse. The weight distribution is completely unstable." Wave Speaker's tentacles writhed with worry. "Then how do we reach the child?" "Someone has to hold it up from the inside," one of the Vextar soldiers said quietly, "while the others pull the child through." Everyone understood what this meant. Whoever went to the inside would be crushed when the metal fell. It was a death sentence. "I will do it," Commander Kixta said immediately. "My shell is strongest." "Negative," Bright One interrupted. "My energy fields can support more weight. I should go." "Both of you are wrong," Wave Speaker argued. "My people are most flexible. I can squeeze through smallest spaces." For a moment, the three species faced each other in the same stubborn way they had during countless battles. But this time they were arguing about who should sacrifice their life to save a human child. "You cannot all go," the lead Vexitar soldier pointed out, "and we cannot waste time deciding." Through the communication system they heard Daeho coughing. The sound was weak and frightening. "The child grows weaker," Commander Kixta observed. "We must act now." "Wait," came a small voice through the radio. It was Daeho himself. "I can hear you talking. You don't have to hurt yourselves for me." "Child, you do not understand," Wave Speaker said gently. "This is the only way." "But maybe it isn't," Daeho replied. His voice was getting weaker, but his mind was still working. "What if we don't move the big pieces? What if we make them stronger? Instead?" Bright One's crystalline body flickered with sudden interest. "Explain your reasoning, small human." "Well," Daeho said slowly, "my mom builds things with blocks sometimes. When blocks are falling down, you don't pull them apart. You add more blocks to hold them up." The three alien rescuers looked at each other with growing amazement. The 8-year-old child was suggesting a solution none of their adult minds had considered. "Use debris to support debris," Commander Kixta translated. "Possible." "Let me calculate," Bright One said, his light pulsing rapidly. "If we position support struts at these angles." "Yes. The structure could be stabilized instead of moved." "My people can seal the gaps with our secretions," Wave Speaker added excitedly. "Create a solid framework. And my soldiers can position the support pieces," Commander Kixta finished. It was a plan that required all three species working in perfect coordination. More importantly, it was a plan created by the wisdom of a human child who saw solutions, where adults saw only problems. "You are very smart, little human," Commander Kixta said with genuine respect. "Your species thinks differently than ours. We approach problems from perspectives we had not considered," Bright One admitted. "This is valuable." "The young see truths that adults forget," Wave Speaker agreed. "Perhaps this is why all species protect their children." Working together with new determination, the three teams began building supports around the unstable barrier. Vextar soldiers positioned metal struts with careful precision. Wave Speaker's people sealed joints with their natural chemicals. Bright One's drones provided structural analysis and energy reinforcement. For the first time in their long history of conflict, the three species worked not just as allies, but as friends united by a common purpose. "Structure stabilized," Bright One announced after 20 minutes of careful work. "Passage is now safe for extraction." "I'm ready," Daeho said bravely, though his voice was very weak now. The rescue was delicate work. Commander Kixta's smallest soldier squeezed through the widened passage and reached the child. Deho was pale and breathing hard, but he was conscious and cooperative. "Hello," the Vextar soldier said gently. "I am Rixka. I have come to take you home." "Thank you," Deho whispered. "Are you really friends with the crystal person? And the fishman now?" "Yes, little human. Your people have shown us that friendship is possible." As they carefully moved Deho through the passage, something remarkable happened. Other rescue teams throughout the damaged section began reporting success as well. The cooperation between the three alien species had created a ripple effect, inspiring better teamwork among all the rescue workers. "We did it," Yunmi sobbed as her son was finally carried to safety. "You all did it." But the real miracle was just beginning. As medical teams treated Deho for toxic gas exposure, the three alien delegates remained together instead of returning to their separate areas. They had experienced something that changed them fundamentally. "In my calculations, this cooperation achieved results that exceeded all individual capabilities combined," Bright One observed. "Your warriors showed honor that my people had not credited," Wave Speaker told Commander Kixta. "We judged your species by actions in war, not character in peace. And your people showed wisdom we had dismissed as weakness," the commander replied. "Perhaps we have all been fools to fight when we could have been friends." The medical team finished treating Deho and declared him healthy. As he sat up on the treatment table, the three alien delegates approached him. "Small human, Commander," Kixta said formally. "You have taught us something important today." "What did I teach you?" Deho asked innocently. "That problems have solutions we cannot see when we are angry with each other," Wave Speaker explained. "That working together makes everyone stronger," Bright One added. "That children ask better questions than adults," Commander Kixta concluded. Deho looked at the three intimidating alien figures and smiled. "Does this mean you're not enemies anymore?" The three delegates looked at each other for a long moment. Then, simultaneously, they each made gestures of peace from their respective cultures. "No, small human," Commander Kixta said. "We are not enemies anymore." But the changes were just beginning. Word of what had happened during the rescue spread throughout Nexus Prime Station, then to the ships that carried the news across the galaxy. Three species that had fought for generations had put aside their hatred to save one human child. In doing so, they discovered that their conflict had been built on misunderstanding and pride, rather than true differences. The rescue of Deho Kim would be remembered as the moment when the impossible became possible, when enemies became friends, because a brave child showed them a better way. 3 days after the rescue, Nexus Prime Station buzzed with unusual activity. Where once alien species kept to their separate sections, now they mixed freely in the corridors. The change was obvious to everyone, but nowhere was it more clear than in Conference Room 12. The same three delegates who had been shouting at each other before the accident now sat around the same table, but this time their voices were calm and respectful. "The trade agreement benefits all our peoples," Commander Kixta said, reviewing the documents. "Equal sharing of resources, equal protection of trade routes. The mathematical projections support long-term prosperity for all parties." Bright One agreed, his crystalline body glowing with peaceful light. "Our peoples will fish the same waters, in harmony," Wave Speaker added, his skin a content blue-green color. Yunmi sat nearby, translating when needed, but mostly just watching in amazement. These were the same beings who had seemed ready to start a war just days ago. "How did this happen so fast?" she asked Taewuk quietly. The station chief smiled. "They learned something about each other during the rescue, and about themselves. Fighting is easy when you don't really know your enemy. Working together, that requires understanding." In the children's play area of the station, an even more remarkable scene was unfolding. Deho sat on the floor with 3 young aliens building a tower out of colorful blocks. His playmates were children from the 3 species that had once been enemies. A small Vextar youth with a soft, developing shell. A young crystal being, who sparkled like a rainbow. A tiny amphibian who changed colors when excited. "No, you have to put the strong blocks on the bottom," Daeho explained patiently as their tower wobbled. Then the pretty ones on top. The alien children listened carefully and rebuilt their structure. None of them spoke the same language perfectly, but they understood each other through gestures, pictures, and simple words. Why did our parents think they were enemies? The young Vextar asked in halting human speech. I don't know, Daeho replied honestly. Maybe they forgot how to play. Together, watching from across the room, Commander Kixta spoke quietly to his fellow delegates. The children see no differences between species, only friends to play with. Young minds are not burdened by historical conflicts, Bright One observed. They judge based on immediate interactions rather than inherited prejudices. Perhaps this is the wisdom your son showed us, Wave Speaker told Unmi. Children know truths that adults complicate. The real change became clear when Captain Hyejin arrived from Earth with a shipment of supplies. She was Unmi's sister and had rushed to the station when she heard about the accident. I expected to find you surrounded by hostile aliens, she said, looking around the peaceful station. Instead, I see this. She gestured to the corridors where different species worked together, shared meals, and even played games. It was unlike anything anyone had seen before in the galaxy. It started with the rescue, Unmi explained, but it's become something bigger. The child's rescue created a template for cooperation, Bright One said, joining their conversation. Other species observed our success and began implementing similar collaborative approaches. It was true. Word of the unprecedented cooperation had spread throughout the galaxy. Other space stations were reporting increased peaceful contact between previously hostile species. Trade disputes were being resolved through negotiation instead of conflict. They're calling it the Daeho effect, Captain Hyejin said with wonder. News services across 12 systems are covering the story. Daeho himself seemed unaware of his growing fame. He was too busy teaching his new alien friends how to play human games and learning their games in return. What will happen now? Unmi asked the 3 delegates. When you return to your homeworlds? We will tell our peoples what we learned here, Commander Kixta replied. That strength comes from cooperation, not conquest. That logical analysis must include emotional factors to reach optimal solutions, Bright One added. That protecting the young of all species benefits everyone, Wave Speaker concluded, but the most important change was still to come. 1 week later, the 3 species made a historic announcement. They would establish the first interspecies alliance in galactic history. The agreement would be called the Nexus Accords, named after the station where their friendship began. The signing ceremony took place in the same conference room where they had once threatened war. Representatives from dozens of species attended, including many who had been inspired by the story of cooperation. Today we sign not just a treaty, but a new beginning, Commander Kixta announced. We choose friendship over fear, cooperation over conflict. Logic and emotion working together achieve more than either can alone, Bright One declared. Like rivers flowing together to reach the sea, we are stronger united, Wave Speaker said. As the 3 leaders signed their names on the historic document, applause filled the room. But the loudest cheers came from the children's section, where Daeho and his alien friends clapped excitedly. We did it, the young Vextar exclaimed. Our parents are friends now, the crystal child chimed. Just like us, the amphibian youth gurgled happily. Later that day, as the celebrations continued throughout the station, Unmi found herself alone with her son in their quarters. Do you understand what happened, sweetheart? She asked him. Because of you, species that have been fighting for generations are now friends. Daeho thought about this seriously. I didn't do anything special, Mom. I just needed help, and they helped me. But why do you think they helped you? Because that's what good people do, he said simply. They help when someone needs help. It doesn't matter if you look different or come from different places. Unmi hugged her son tightly. You're right, and maybe that's the most important lesson of all. From their window, they could see ships from all 3 species docked together at the station. Crews that had once shot at each other now worked side by side, loading supplies and sharing stories. The galaxy was still full of conflicts and challenges, But for the first time in generations, there was real hope that differences could be resolved through understanding rather than war. And it all started with one small human child who needed rescuing, and the adults who discovered that working together to protect innocence was more important than any old hatred. Years later, when historians wrote about the beginning of the Great Alliance, they would call it many things. The Nexus Miracle, the Unity Accords, the Great Cooperation. But those who were there would always remember it by a simpler name. The day the aliens learned what it really meant to be human, and the day humans learned that the best parts of humanity could be found in every species if you just knew how to look.